Now I can't help but to start this video off by saying, here we go yet again. Because once more, the rumors and speculation are swirling about Kathleen Kennedy's time at Lucasfilm coming to an end in the near future. And this time we're hearing everything from Disney as having her investigated for some sort of criminal activity or misuse of funds apparently, or something along those lines, to what were supposed to be contract renewal negotiations for her turning into severance negotiations because she's leaving or being forced out. And for the record, her current contract doesn't expire until October of 2024. And again, if leaks and rumors are to be believed, she can't even be fired for performance reasons, but can be fired for legal or criminal reasons, which is why or what Disney is supposedly investigating her for. They want her gone by any means necessary. Though, as usual, it's kind of hard to wade through all these leaks and rumors and know what, if anything, is true among them, which are coming from legit sources and which are coming from not so legit sources, or are being exaggerated or all but made up by those who just want to get clicks and views on their stories or videos. I mean, there has been so many leaks and rumors about Kennedy over the last 6 years or so. Ones that said she was going to be fired, or this or that was going to happen at Lucasfilm or Disney, and yet little or nothing has changed in that time. Kennedy remains as president. However, one thing that we do know is actually happening, and that some are pointing to as potential evidence of her departure, is she is selling a house, one of many that she owns, in Malibu that is less than an hour away from Disney's headquarters. A house she bought, I believe it was shortly in or around the time of her first contract extension with Lucasfilm, sometime in or around 2015, which leads some to believe this was purchased simply to have a place to stay close to Disney headquarters when she needed one, and that by selling it now, it's a sign it's no longer gonna be needed because she's being let go, or basically already has been, or just one way or another isn't going to be at Lucasfilm anymore and thus doesn't need to be near Disney. That said, she could simply be selling it because, well, the asking price is twice what she paid for it originally, and it's always been looked at as some kind of investment by her, not bought to be close to Disney. And also, it should be noted, she's not selling a home that she has near Lucasfilm headquarters in San Francisco, which I think would be far more curious if she was doing that, let's say. So who knows if this house being sold in Malibu should be read into or not? My guess is probably not. But something that should be read into and that Disney has no doubt taken notice of, let's say, are the recent failures of Lucasfilm, including, of course, the absolute disaster that was Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which is now wrapping up its box office run and sits at about $370 million worldwide, which doesn't sound awful till you realize it needed to make somewhere in the ballpark of $900 million just to break even, when you factor in things like its budget, which was around $330 million, as well as marketing and the cut that the theaters will of course take. I did a whole video on that a few weeks back. We also then recently learned that the Willow series that came out on Disney Plus late last year, that it cost a little over $100 million for pre-production and filming alone, which then doesn't factor in post-production cost, which could be tens of millions of dollars more. And that it was so bad that it got pulled from Disney Plus because they essentially didn't want to have to pay to keep it up there. They didn't want to have to pay residuals or royalties, basically, that it wasn't worth it to them. Then we could look at something like Andor, which though I personally thought was fantastic, but it didn't exactly see the kind of numbers they were no doubt hoping for. The viewership on it wasn't great, to put it mildly, and it cost them somewhere around $250 million to make. $250 million for a show that struggled to crack the Nielsen top 10 ratings for new shows. We can also look at the numbers or viewership on Season 3 of The Mandalorian and see that they went down from Season 2 as more and more people seem to be checking out of Star Wars or just found this season to be not as good as the previous seasons. And it's losing viewership when it really should be gaining it as it gets better as time goes by or as the seasons go on. Which then makes you wonder how well will something like Ahsoka do on Disney Plus, since it's not a well-known character outside of the core fandom, and that it likely won't have an adorable baby Yoda or something along those lines to help sell it to the masses like The Mandalorian did. His creation, Grogu's creation, was by far the best move Lucasfilm has made in the Disney era. Though at the same time, it's kind of sad that the best character, or just the best thing they've done in general, is creating a character that literally cannot speak, and is mainly loved for being adorable. After the Ahsoka series, then we have a show called Skeleton Crew that, at least thus far, has little to no buzz around it, even within the fan base. No one seems to be talking about this show, which, as far as we've kind of heard, seems to be trying to, in a sense, be the Star Wars version or equivalent of Stranger Things. It's a show that we've been told features kids, but isn't exactly for kids. After that, then, is The Acolyte, which has been getting plenty of buzz and attention, but mainly for all the wrong reasons. Seems like those involved in its creation can't stop talking about it being a reflection of the modern world, which has become, shall we say, a bit of a red flag for some fans these days. And so it appears as if on the near horizon, Lucasfilm has a few more live-action shows that may very well struggle to find an audience with the more casual fan, and maybe even with the more hardcore fans, all things considered. And that's to say nothing of the writer and actor strike and how this will impact the future of all things Star Wars or Star Wars content, or how much we will be getting anytime soon or after the ones we already know are coming. And who knows what exactly will go on with the 3 films that were recently announced at Star Wars Celebration, which at the very earliest are still a few years away. And one would have to imagine their hopes with these new films is to, in a sense, reinvigorate some wider interest in the fan base or in the franchise itself, to sort of put it back in the spotlight once more, since it seems to be fading from it while being relegated to little more than a Disney Plus franchise like it has been for the past 3+ years now, or since the release of The Rise of Skywalker in theaters in December of 2019. Though I would have to imagine that at least one of those 3 announced films is on shaky ground right now, that being the Dawn of the Jedi film from James Mangold, the same guy who just directed the disastrous Indiana Jones film we talked about before. It's kind of hard to imagine that after tanking one Lucasfilm franchise, potentially for good, that they'll let him try his hand at another, especially when the struggling Star Wars franchise is pretty much all Lucasfilm has going for it at this point. And so all of this less than stellar news has led to even more leaks or rumors about huge budget cuts coming for Lucasfilm, which makes sense given it seems like they just keep losing money for Disney these days. And speaking of that, Disney Plus lost around 300,000 North American subscribers last quarter. Not very good for a streaming service that has never been profitable and may never be at this rate. And they even recently announced a price hike for subscriptions of around $3 per month, and this shortly after Bob Iger, a couple months back now, talked about how they'd be making cuts to the number of projects they create and the amount of money they'd spend on them. Basically, Disney Plus is asking more money for less content and wondering why people aren't flocking to their streaming service. Anyway, there are, as I was saying, a lot of talk about huge cuts coming to Lucasfilm, and it seems they've started since we just learned a couple days ago that Lucasfilm was closing its VFX and animation studio in Singapore, a studio that once worked on, or was basically opened for, working on the Clone Wars animated series. Though Lucasfilm was quick to point out that no, this would not affect the Bad Batch Season 3 or Tales of the Jedi Season 2, both of which are slated to come out sometime next year. But one does have to wonder how it may affect future animation projects, or previous announced ones like the Droid Story series that never came to fruition, and I'm guessing many of you had long since forgot all about that one. So basically here, Lucasfilm seems to be in rough waters, shall we say, yet Kathleen Kennedy remains as its captain. Though one of the many rumors out there says the only reason that's the case is because, well, no one else wants the job, that Disney couldn't replace her even if they wanted to or do want to. But the thing is, eventually they are going to have to replace her. As of late, my attitude towards Kennedy is that, with her now being 70 years old, it is only a matter of time before she's gone. Which certainly doesn't mean I wouldn't like it to be sooner rather than later, or that we won't have a problem of some Star Wars fans being so apathetic by the time it happens that even if things do turn around under new leadership, they'll never come back anyway. And even assuming it can be turned around at this point, which is a pretty big if, especially if yet another rumor is true, and I stress rumor here, but there are those who are saying that Jon Favreau has abandoned ship after butting heads too many times with Kennedy, and many had sort of pegged him as a potential replacement for her. And if he doesn't get the job, just who will Bob Iger and company find to lead the Lucasfilm ship out of these troubled waters? Could it even be someone worse than Kathleen Kennedy? And even if it is the right person for the job, which I certainly hope it is, as I've said before, I will always root for Star Wars. I always want to see it get better, and I've got my fingers crossed for the upcoming Ahsoka series. But even the right person is going to find it difficult to win back the fans that Kennedy has lost, and to turn it into a premier franchise once more for the general audiences, to turn that Star Wars name and logo into something people automatically flock to because it means quality, not just content for the sake of content. Well, that's going to be all I got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think about the current state of Lucasfilm. Just what can or will turn this thing around, do you think? Or can it be turned around anymore? Whatever the case may be, leave those comments below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.